Hello and welcome to the 62nd episode of the Pretty Good Gaming Podcast. I'm Mike Williams. This is Jake Kulkowski.
Hello.
And Liam McKelvey.
Hello.
How are you doing, gents? You all right?
Yeah, I'm all right.
Everyone well?
Yeah,
It's good to be back, baby.
Nice one. I'm all right as well. Thanks for asking.
No one cares.
This week, as always, we'll be answering our patrons' questions. If you want to ask a question, then support us on Patreon for $1 a month and you get access to the Patreon feed where you can comment on these podcasts and ask any question you like, and we'll do our best to read it out. At this point, the amount of questions we can read is kind of massively outnumbered by the amount of questions we get asked. But the advice, as always, is to just keep asking the questions. And questions like Paul Bowleys, who asks, "Hey guys, first-time Patreon member here. What are, in your opinion, gaming's no-nos or gaming crimes that you think other players shouldn't commit?" So, for example, with certain games like Hellblade, God of War, Horizon Zero Dawn, I think it's wrong for players to hold sprint everywhere all the time. These games are so damn beautiful. It would be a shame to not occasionally slow things down, take in the scenery, and immerse yourself into the world. FYI, not against running in games, just not all the time. Thanks for a great question, Paul. What's the gaming's biggest crimes? I think that I'm with you there, Paul. I think there's so much time is spent in these games that I can't think of anything worse than rushing through them.
Yeah.
I can't. It's just.
No, I get that.
You know what I mean? Like, just slow down.
I don't know about a crime, but I think I told you this story before. It's become like legend around people that know me, but it involves everything mentioned. Okay, it's not really a crime, but it's a grave error someone made.
This is a lot of build-up.
This is a big no-no, right? Elder Scrolls Skyrim came out. My friend finished the whole game without sprinting because because it wasn't bound to the shift key, so he did the whole game thinking it's immersive and they've not added the sprint button. He spent I don't know if he's watching. I'm sure he'll tell you in the comment section.
This has got to be like the fifth time you've told this story on the podcast.
On the podcast,
I enjoy it every time.
Oh, do you really? I really am a dad now, aren't I? But yeah, so it's like he did the whole thing over encumbered. I'm sure I've made that quip as well, but that is how much of a fucking error is that?
Yeah,
that's like triple play time.
That's like playing like Bloodborne or even God of War without locking on once. I was watching my mum play God of War on Sunday, and she wasn't locking on to anything else. It's like fucking painful to watch. That's a big no-no, not locking on. Like, I can see why on like games like Bloodborne and stuff you might want to lock on. I find it easier to not, to be honest. Yeah. Because the camera's more in your control. But that's a big no-no. Not locking on.
Yeah.
Learn to do that.
Not locking on. I think my one is a personal one. Is kind of along the same lines as yours, Paul. Skipping through dialogue and cutscenes.
Mm-hmm. I think I've realised my chair's a lot. I'm not even just doing this. I'm not doing it for antics.
Right. Well, we'll do is to address some
I feel a lot better now.
some scandal that's been going on.
What is it? I've been hunched forward, see, so I'm lower than I am. But now that I'm sitting back, I realise that I was a bit too high up.
Are you comfortable now?
I am now. Yeah. We're not putting this in the title, are we?
No, I'm not putting that in the title. So some people asking the question whether or not I'm actually bullying Jake for adjusting his chair.
The answer is definitely
definitely not.
I said I was on paternity leave and I saw that there was a massive debate in the comment section, only between two guys, but they were just going on.
It was furious,
and it was like, Mike, the way that Mike spoke to Jake about that chair was really not on. The other guy was like, it was only a joke, and then this other guy was like, well, if you read between the lines, I've watched it multiple times, and I've got to say, when I watched it again,
frame by frame,
and then there's like the plot thickened. The week after, Mike moved his chair, and when Gaz brought it up to him, Mike was very quick to say it was a different situation than Jake moving his chair. I found that very funny.
Well, I think you'll find I brought it up before.
No, we want to be like the Sopranos guy. Just don't tell them the definitive answer. like David Lynch. It's whatever you want it to be. But anyway, game and no-no.
So now that Jake suggested this chair, it's coming from a place of love and respect and also mutual spice, right? It's just the difference is Jake doesn't do it on camera. Yeah. That's the only difference, right? Yeah.
I manipulate the situation to look like the victim, but really I'm horrible to Mike all the time.
He's actually a tactical genius, and he's got me. So gaming, what's the question? Gaming no. Skipping through dialogue and cutscenes. I really do find that annoying, though. that is half of the game. That is half the game, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Is the story and presentation usually. I can't imagine sitting through a film and just go, I'm not into this bit. I'm just going to skip this till there's an explosion.
Skip chapter.
What are you doing? Just it's that. Yeah, I'm not having that. So skipping writing, skipping things that you're. It's a whole part of the game, I reckon, and it annoys me when people skip through it. What about you, Liam? You got any?
Sort of related, unskippable cutscenes. So,
sort of related and completely the opposite.
Not to be pedantic or anything, but like when you play games, say like a really hard section in a game,
and you've already done it, or you've already
seen the cutscene.
Yeah.
You already know the dialogue.
Yeah.
But then it forces you to rewatch it like before every boss fight.
Definitely.
That is unbearable to
Definitely.
me. And yeah. So
you do return to games as well, so that probably affects you more than most people I know. So I can imagine
you do multiple playthroughs, don't you?
Yeah, exactly. And if Resident Evil 7, that's a game where they're not cutscenes; they're like they just lock you in place.
Yeah.
So stuff like that, like quick time eventy stuff, where it's really narrative heavy. But when you've done the narrative side of it once, it kind of takes a lot off it.
Yeah, I mean, this isn't a player's or a gamer's no, is it? But it is annoying, and also it kind of just what you just said there, taking the control out of your hands. That's again, it's like that's not what I want. I don't want to just be sitting there like while the game does things for me. I want to be playing a game, and that's on the flip side. That is when a game can be annoying.
Another big no. Can I just have one more? Because this one I just remembered how much it affected
you have been on
me.
holiday.
My brother, right, runs ahead on co-op games. And I fucking hate that. It's like
have you told him?
Yeah. My sister was like my brother-in-law, right? So my sister and I have been playing games, and she says, "Oh, I've been playing this game with Dan," and I was like, "Was he running ahead?" I asking for her so I can like be a support network for her. He runs ahead. He's just like he's quick at games, but like when it's like a loot-driven game, one of them he picks up and I'm like, "You motherfucker!" Yeah. I remember we were playing Borderlands 2 on it. God, I remember he was in the fucking distance. I could see him on the horizon, and I would just follow a trail of bodies to him, and he's like high level on me. He's like, "What are you doing, mother?"
I have to admit, I'm pretty guilty of that, especially in multiplayer games. Like when we played Radical Heights on stream, Gaz told me off a few times for running off without him.
You're young, you'll learn.
That's so funny. Liam running off and Gaz telling you off. That's exactly what would have happened.
Yeah, it's like young, and
It was just like he was like, "So I guess I'm following you now." I was like, "Oh, sorry." It's because I'm so used to playing games solo. I don't really take into
me and
account
Mike playing Divinity Original
feelings.
Sin was one of the most tender co-op moments ever. Like, do you want to go through this stuff first? No, do you want to go through this stuff first? It's very slow.
Polite, and it's I think we're a similar pace and
I wouldn't
level
do
of
that.
stuff.
I'd just barge through that door.
Yeah.
And say,
well, when we were playing
guys?
Vermintide, you're the damage dealer, so I just assumed that you were killing everybody.
That's I've always run ahead of you guys in Vermintide.
But I assume that's because you were the glass cannon, so it's okay. We'll work this out. No, you're still young. If you're doing this at 28, we're
going to have to have some conversations.
Too far gone
exactly. Yeah. You can't teach dog new tricks. Great first question.
So thanks, Paul. That was a good question. Thank you very much. Pinklad12 asks, do you think God of War will have DLC or should they leave it as it is? Okay, what are your predictions first, guys? Do you think?
I reckon all the setup they made at the end of this one, probably sequel, PS5 generation, I reckon.
So you're both going sequel?
I reckon no DLC.
I have a case to present to both of you.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. I think there definitely will be DLC, and I think that specific ending, this is a post-credits ending for God of War, and I think that is setting up DLC, specifically that thing.
Really?
And let me tell you why. Okay. Sony's big AAA third-person blockbusters all have one piece of DLC. Horizon Zero Dawn, Last of Us is late last gen, Infamous Second Son, Uncharted even had Lost Legacy, which was going to be DLC, and that came to be its own game. Mm-hmm. So I think that is just the way Sony does it, and I think there will be one big bit of DLC for God of War.
I agree, but I don't know if it'll carry on the story, because
one
thing that they've all got in common is they're either prequels or spin-offs. So maybe Atreus and Faye.
Also, female characters.
Exactly. So maybe you'll see Faye raising Atreus or Fane Kratos or something like that. Do you know something like maybe along the lines of that? I think Liam's right with it being a setup to a full fat sequel.
Yeah,
it's the whole game.
It's because of how they did. I think that because of like God of War 2, where they ended it with literally Kratos climbing Mount Olympus.
Yeah.
And then that's how the third game started.
It's kind of direct
pickup. Yeah.
And Corey Balog, we just Gaz and I have just recorded a video on kind of things he's been saying this week, and you would have seen that by the time this comes out. And that is kind of what he's been saying does suggest that they are looking ahead to the future, even though he backtracks a little bit. It's obvious that they've got their eyes on games down the line.
Yeah, like I remember when Assassin's Creed Origins came out, he was saying. Funny story, because no one would listen to him at that point because the game hadn't come out and wasn't a masterpiece. So he was like, "Shut up, Corey." But he was like, "Funny thing is, guys, we've been looking at Egypt ourselves here at the God of War team, but now everyone is looking back at all these old interviews and going and actually listening to what he said."
Which is why those other possible settings are coming up. That's why I think that they would tie up this Norse setting in this game, but I mean, it's just my prediction. I think there certainly will be an expansion in some variety because of Sony's track record with the first part.
Either answer does make sense, total sense. If they, completely kept it for the next one, and it could be a system seller for the next gen, or if they did one bit, maybe a spin-off, maybe a prequel, maybe even a short sequel, not on the grand scheme of things, but just. Responding to that post-credits thing.
It's a big game. It's a really big game, and they're going to have to do something very big to follow up with it, is what I think. So, it's going to be interesting. Definitely want to keep an eye on anyway. So, cheers, been glad. Hope that answers your question. Shane McMahon.
Is he the wrestler?
We've had Vince
McMahon.
And we've had...
Shane's his son, is that right? Yeah, that's
last week.
They brother and sister, and Vince
I don't know. I don't know wrestling.
I don't either. Just
no disrespect to the McMahon family, who we now know are loyal viewers of the podcast. Yeah. No disrespect, but Shane McMahon this week follows up from a couple of McMahon family questions. PGG, my family have been talking about you guys non-stop. Please excuse my foolish sister referring to the film incorrectly as Player One Ready last week. That was an embarrassing mistake. I'm assuming
this is very meta.
Deliberate though. I am not ashamed to say that I have loved playing God of War to completion, and during that time I have neglected my wife and friends for Kratos and Atreus. This has consisted of an unhealthy number of back-to-back hours playing the game. Yeah. How long would you say your longest non-stop stretch of playing a game has been, and which game was it?
I know exactly what the answer to this is. 19 hours, and it was this shitty 2D MMORPG called Tibia. And what happened with that is, me and my friend were accused of being botters because we no-lifed it in one sitting, and we had to prove that we were at that we had to say what we were doing.
Did you have to say, I am the real Jake Kulkowski?
I am. No, they just like, because they were saying, "Oh, you wouldn't play that long," but they didn't realise that we were just losers. But me and all
robots. No, we're just losers.
This is about 12 years ago, 11 years ago. I was about 15, right? And like all my mates in school were playing this game, Tibia. If anyone knows what it is, you'll know what I mean. It was
like part of there's like a leg bone or something.
Tibia is actually your shin bone, yeah. It's a German MMO game. It's got really high stakes. When you die, like you lose like your equipment.
Oh, great. Okay. Cool.
So you could lose any random bit of your equipment.
Yeah.
But late game, you could spend literally like a month of grinding for to get one level up, and you lose your equipment, and you can lose a level. Sometimes you can lose 2 levels.
Yeah.
Anyway, it was. I can remember exactly when it was. It was 2007, I think. So it was 11 years ago, and it was the Port Hope update when they added Taekwondo in there.
That old Port Hope Tibia update, man.
Yeah, and we were exploring it and discovered the first Hydra. Our first Hydra, not a server first, and that was it. Yeah, so big fat session at 19.
What a story! 19 hours.
That was the question.
Are you a bot? No, I'm just a loser. That's like the catch line for that story. I think it's a good marketing line, that isn't it? If you commit to film. Liam, what about you? That's the longest.
I don't know. It was like from 11 in the morning till 4 in the morning.
What the
next? Yeah, I did have like breaks for food and stuff, but it's for Final Fantasy 13-2, so not even a very good game. It was like,
that's grim.
I just kept playing it, and then before I realised it, I was like, oh, I'm at the final dungeon, And this was like at midnight.
So
I might as well just carry it on. It'll probably be half an hour.
Yeah.
Little did I know it was like 2 hours of cutscenes after the final boss. So I didn't end up going to bed till 3, 4 in the morning.
Jesus.
And I had school the next day because I was still in high school when that game came out.
I
almost fell asleep in my history A level class.
Yeah, well,
but
that's
I
not
beat
surprising.
that boss, so didn't I? So
yeah, so who's
nice.
the real boss? I'm pretty lightweight compared to that. I reckon. I think it's probably like 12 hours or something is my biggest one, and even then it would usually be multiple games. I do have like long sessions of like 8 hours or something. Like I'll complete Hellblade: Senua's Sacrifice in like 6.5 hours. But I do get distracted and stuff, and I do feel like I want to get up and do something else after like 6 hours. That's like my kind of upper limit, And then so probably my biggest is I think coming home from school at my mate's house. My mate Bryn and it was like
shouts out Big Bryn,
and it was like we played I think it was like we usually play Battle for Middle Earth or something like that on the Xbox 360, but I think it was like COD Modern Warfare. And that ended up, so between the two of those games, straight away after school, just like drinking cans of Coke and eating chocolate and having like pizza or whatever. Classic teenage behaviour.
Very fucking relatable.
Right through to about 5. I remember the sun coming up.
Yeah,
and that is the only one that is really burnt in my mind. Is like, holy shit, we played games for too long.
You know what? Yeah, when I look back at things I did in my life that were outgoing and I'm proud of, I also look back to these great times that were actually really sad. I'm going to share this with you. Okay, so me and my friend Kale, he had an original Xbox and Morrowind on it, and I remember him showing me around his Morrowind gaff and that. Show me all the place. Don't try
and make it seem cooler or harder by calling it a gaff.
Hey, we were having a couple of bevies, Dr. Pep.
You were like, oh, what's happening in this manner?
Having a couple of Dr. Pep, his mum was making us chicken nuggets. No, that really all did happen. And it was quite a common thing that, from after school until... And it was very specifically sunrise because it was a summer, and telly shopping used to be on at about 3 or 4 in the morning. And we used to like unwind after loads of games. We used to watch like Rogue Doctor adverts and QVC. So it used to be, and we still talk about it like now. Like used to play games for like 12 hours, then unwind by watching it. It was always rotisserie chicken thing on QVC and Rogue Doctor.
Telly shopping at 3 in the morning is quite a surreal experience.
Yeah,
especially because I used to I must have had insomnia when I was in like high school, and I always used to just sit staring at the TVs like 3 in the morning, and it was some really weird experiences.
QVC used to have it, and it was, this isn't like once, twice. This happened like 30 times in a year. It's become a bit of a tradition, so it does not anymore. I can't say past like midnight now, but
exactly. I'm the same. I'm like 10 o'clock now.
Hopefully that answer. Hopefully these are the answers you were looking for when you asked this question. Like these, like that's
what it is, though, isn't it? If you play games a lot, that is the kind of story that you've got. You haven't got the story where you're like, oh yeah, me and the boys were out till whatever in the morning and ended up in a bin or whatever normal people do. It's like, no, I just had.
And every house on Fable.
And I did some very fun things in Elder Scrolls. It's like it's just your story is different, and so I guess maybe that's the kind of thing that you're open for there, Mr. McMahon. So following on with a kind of similar question along similar lines, Law Money says, hello gents, long time viewer, first time patron. Welcome aboard. Quite a few of these recently, which is very cool. Thank you everyone for joining us.
Troops,
would like to know, what's the greatest length of time you've put into a single game without finishing it? Whether because you lost interest or rage quit, or because you somehow lost the save and never went back. So you've spent ages on a game, but didn't finish it for whatever reason. Mm-hmm. Can you guys think of any examples? I think this is a tough one, because if you commit a lot of time, then you usually will finish it. But it does feel like the kind of thing that if it happened, it would burn in your mind like a bad memory, and you'd remember it.
I did a playthrough of Final Fantasy VIII once, and I got like 40 hours into the game, and then I fucked up how like my leveling and stuff like that. So I couldn't get past the boss, and I just had to start the game again. So I couldn't go. I hit a point of no return. I couldn't grind.
Yeah, I've heard you say this. Yeah.
I couldn't grind. I couldn't reload an earlier save because I only had the one. So it's like 40 hours down the drain.
Disgusting.
Mine's also a Final Fantasy game, and it's about the same. Final Fantasy X, and I spent so long playing Blitzball and stuff like that. I never finished it. I watched my mate finish it, so I know the ending, and I felt like I was there when it was finished. And then I did 10-2. Yeah. That was like way easier. But I never finished it, and my save file must have been about 40-50 hours. Blitzball, did all the little sidey bits, loved it, but never actually finished it.
I got a big confession now, and it is related to my previous story about playing games with my mate Bryn. Right, one of the golden era Xbox 360 games was, for me, Oblivion. Right, Elder Scrolls Oblivion. Yeah, I really liked it. Really, really liked it. Never finished it because of the gates. The Oblivion gates, which just pop up.
Famously, the bit that everyone says is like the shittest bit.
It's the shittest bit. And I was almost at the end. And I've got this thing where if I feel like I am unhappy, I start asking myself, why am I doing this? Why am I watching this TV show? This shit. Why am I watching? Do you know what I mean?
Your own ad,
yeah, and I just start thinking there's many other things. I'm a fan of many things. I could do any of those other things. So why would I keep doing this? And that, unfortunately, just slipped into my head playing Oblivion. And I had committed a long time, probably about 40 hours, maybe something like that, just to this one playthrough. And I was kind of, I was just really getting ground down by all of the Oblivion gates that were appearing, and I could, the story and thematically, it's getting to be that point where you need to finally face the big bad. But still, no matter where I went, there was a fucking Oblivion gate, and there was stuff spewing out of it, and then you had to go in and shit. I
remember how many. Is there like 6? I think you have to. It's the same thing pretty much every time. You have to go.
I don't know. I never finished it.
It's 6.
It just ground me down, and just the fact that it was there, like outside the town and stuff. I was like, oh, God Almighty, this just isn't good. And because I don't know, there's just the game wasn't like a perfect game by any means, and so that is a game that I should have finished, final of the series and everything. But
Oblivion's one of them games I think it's quite famous for it now. I think where the side quests, Dark Brotherhood. Is that what it's called in Oblivion? And the Thieves Guild is more interesting than the main.
These side story. Chains, the quest chains, right, where you can follow another story.
Yeah, they're like just as interesting, if not more. Yeah. There's that I remember that famous glitch when Oblivion first came out that you could finish the game in like 3 minutes by putting paintbrushes up. You could climb because paintbrushes were gravity defying. Yeah. So you could jump on paintbrushes, jump into the Colosseum at the end. It would trigger the final boss fight. Yeah. Yeah. Weird little trivia there.
So that was one, and I can't remember. You said Colosseum. Did I actually finish it? I think I might have gone back on
Maybe
PC
you watched
or something.
It or something.
No, you get like a. I remember it. You get like a fine suit of armor and all this. You get like
a giant fight with Maelun's Dagon. And
I know.
Skylight turns to like a dragon or like a colossus.
Yeah.
Thing.
So I did do it. Eventually, but not that. And I lost that save and lost that playthrough and everything. And I did. It probably would have been on PC because I've revisited a lot of those.
And you came back and slayed that dragon metaphorically.
I probably enjoyed it a lot more because I loaded it with mods and stuff and made it a better game than it was. So there you go. Thanks for the question, Laura Money. Nice. Azura asks, do you think early access would be less of a joke if there were rules on what needed to be done to keep the game purchasable on Steam? Assuming, of course, that Steam did the required rule enforcement. So imagine there's a set of like criteria that it has to be, functional in some way. It has to have all of these, and that is the only rule I think Valve have got. It has to boot up and work, and it has to be an exe that loads into something other than a menu. I think that's the only rule that they've got at the moment for early access and anything, I guess, on Steam.
I guess because it's like multiplayer games and some aren't, some are 2D, some are 3D, so they can't use like a. They can't use a condition for like graphics or it has to have so many hours in because some games are shorter than others. So because everything's so versatile and there's so many different like variable things, it's going to be really hard to govern that. And if Valve don't govern anything really, so I guess there can't be anything done about it. I don't think anything will be done about it realistically, and I don't know what I'd propose either because, like I'm saying, it can't be like your game has to have at least 5 hours of playtime because. Some game like What Remains of Edith Finch, the whole thing is like 2 hours long.
Yeah, exactly. It's not very high quality games that are only 2 hours long. So, what do you reckon, Liam?
I'm pretty much in the same boat as Jake. Like, I mean, there's barely any like governance on Steam when it comes to early access, and Valve have made it very clear they're not interested in curating it themselves. No. So I don't think anything will happen to early access. It is. I mean, you get games like Radical Heights, which are extreme early access or whatever they say. Yeah. And there's stuff like buildings aren't even textured, water doesn't work and stuff like that.
You go into
it is a functional game.
It does work, and there is multiplayer in it, for example, which is a complicated thing to get working.
It does what it intends to do.
Multiplayer battle royale scale, so it's not just like 4 versus 4 or something. It's a lot of players connecting to the service, and it works, and it does technically, functionally work.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think it's a tough one, and Valve, they always throw that thing out where like, oh, we're not curators, we don't want to decide what is good and what is bad.
Yeah.
That's not our job. And then the result of that is that you get all this shit on early access. I think even if you were to say you need to support it, you need to issue a patch at least once a month or something to show that you're working on this game and that you're continuing to support, anything like that is difficult because the realities of game development aren't. That's just not the way it works. Like a lot of companies will find it, because they're only small teams, will find it better to just work on a very big patch altogether and chuck that out in the space of 3 months, so they wouldn't then be able to keep up with the rules. So it's very, very difficult to police, and it's a problem that Valve has created by letting anything and everything onto Steam.
Yeah, you're totally right.
I just don't know how you would begin to police it, and I don't think they know either, and that's why they just don't. They just leave it, don't they? So there you go. Sorry, Azura, we haven't got the answers for the games industry. But thanks for the question. Simply Phil asks, with the success of GOW, which I'm going to assume is God of War given the recent release and not Gears of War, do you think Microsoft will finally realise that a great console exclusive can drive sales and that relying on backwards capabilities is not enough?
Yeah, they realise. Phil Spencer's talking about it now. Mm-hmm. He's like, we hear you and all this. And he doesn't sound like a goblin, but like, we hear you, and he's saying this, and I think he was saying that, we wanted to work on the hardware, and that took time. Then we wanted to work on the backwards compatibility, and that took time. Now we're working on the games. It's like just Fable 4, that's all you need to do. Just make Fable 4. Loads of people will be like, fuck, okay, that's a big game. Blah, done. Simple as that.
Get Halo Master Chief Collection on a PC.
Yeah, stop relying on him, though. Stop relying on Master Chief. Do something new.
If they want some money and I want to play it, so do that.
Okay.
Do that for me. And stop relying on Master Chief, but the Halo universe is great. There's nothing wrong with going back to your old IPs. Sony does that all the time. They just do a flipping good job of it. You could do infinite amount of things with the Halo universe that do not include Master Chief. They try doing it with Halo ODST and stuff, but it doesn't matter if it's a good game, if it's a well-designed game, and you've done a good job of it. It doesn't matter that Master Chief isn't in it. I don't think you need to have him there. He's there as a fallback in that case. If you need to have that character in there, then you've failed as a game designer and a storyteller.
I know it sounds like I'm making it sound simple, but like, they worked hard on creating a universe, not just an IP, but a universe. And now they are relying on that a lot because it's one of their only ones that they've got. They spend more time making new IPs, and you might get more fucking opportunities to make 10 games based off one universe. I think they just need to focus a little bit more. Not like I'm saying Fable, that's the right time to bring it back. And if they do that, I'll be, I don't know, because I feel like it's bad on Lionhead, but it'll probably sell really, really well.
I think, I would buy it. I mean, I can tell you that. I would get on it. I think that they definitely realise that they need console exclusives, but currently they're just managing the fact that they haven't got any. They've got State of Decay, which is a budget £24 game, which is coming out in a few weeks, and they've got Sea of Thieves, which was full price, wasn't it? But that again was available on this Microsoft
Game Pass.
They've got Crackdown 3.
Crackdown 3,
whenever that comes out, or never, whenever, I don't know.
Crackdown 3 is probably the only one out of those three that I could comfortably describe as a big AAA product.
Yeah.
Because to me, Sea of Thieves, it isn't a big AAA product. It is what it is, but what that is isn't a big system-selling AAA game, in my opinion. And Crackdown is the only one that I think comes anywhere close to that in their current kind of lineup, not including Forza, which is its own thing. If you don't like cars and you're not interested, if you do like cars, then it's the best car game.
I was going to say it's big for what it is.
Yes,
isn't it?
very
I like
much.
Forza games.
They're
good.
Yeah. But then that's what they've got really, and they're just missing. They're missing open world AAA games. I remember when Horizon Zero Dawn came out, there was a news story emerging that they really genuinely just said, we need a Horizon Zero Dawn, and now they're probably looking at God of War going, we need a God of War, and so hopefully that conversation has happened with Horizon Zero Dawn. They've put some money to some studio to get their equivalent of Horizon Zero Dawn, and hopefully by the time that comes out, it will be a relevant, good game, and they'll try and do something interesting with it, and not just kind of,
It's been over a year since they said that now, so we might even see them announce it at E3, or not our Horizon Zero Dawn, but do you know what I mean? Like, you might see some stuff that'll shock you.
Yeah, it's just weird to have that conversation flip, because for the longest time it was a Halo killer, wasn't it? It was like the Halo killer was the thing that you needed, and that's the thing that PlayStation was seeking, and they tried Killzone and stuff, and I mean, I don't think you could ever consider that to be a Halo killer, but it's just weird how it's flipped, I reckon, in that sense. And they definitely realised that they need console exclusives. Hopefully they're spending money on it. Yeah.
I mean, games take a long time to make, so I don't know.
Like Crackdown, which has been in the works for like 4 years or something.
It had fully destructible cityscapes at one point.
It's changed developers like twice.
Yeah, it's been a bit of a mess. They cancelled Scalebound.
And then Platinum Games gave Sony Nier Automata, didn't they?
Yeah, right? It's something like that.
Pretty much.
They could have had their own. They could have had their Nier Automata.
Yeah.
If they didn't cancel Scalebound, do you know what I mean? Like, they need to stop cancelling their pressure. And that's the thing, isn't it? There's all this like meta shit about them, like. Do they or don't they? Because there's lots of reports from developers saying that Microsoft are quite horrible to work with. They're very pressury. They come and have reviews of them every now and then, and they're like, we need to change this. And it sounds like Sony just kind of do what you want a bit more.
They're under new management now, aren't they? Phil Spencer is in an even higher position than he was before, so he's in a good place to make things better. Whether he does that or not remains to be seen.
At least in terms of his public face, he does seems to do a very good job. And he's a very good communicator and everything, and he's very good at saying the right things.
He's very active on Twitter. He's direct to talk to fans, that sort of thing.
And he's kind of a gamer-focused guy as well. He's not like sat there going, "Oh, guys, I've been watching Netflix via Xbox, and let me tell you, that's Stranger Things, eh?" He's not doing that. He's talking about games, and he's talking about things that games.
It's like didn't he congratulate Santa Monica for God of War recently as well? It seems like he handles his socials very well.
Yeah, so he's doing a good job, and I think you just hope behind the scenes they are working on things. You'd hope they've been beavering away for a few years. They do have some studios that are just, as far as we're aware, are just idling. They're just they're working on something, we don't know what it is. So hopefully this E3 will start seeing some stuff, some announcements, and I'm looking forward to it. Honestly, I am looking forward to seeing it.
I feel that they will be bringing something to the table soon. They can't be ignoring everybody. There's got to be something going on.
They've got to be putting money into it, serious money, and they've got to be seeing what Sony are doing, and at least on a very basic capitalist level going, let's do that.
Because it's like if they've been looking at feedback for the past 2 years, you need games, and they're putting all the money in it. The games still might not be anywhere near done, because that's the thing. Game development takes so long to do. It's not like a film.
5 years God of War took. So.
Yeah, exactly. So we might start seeing the fruits of their labour emerge at this E3 or next E3. But I reckon over the past 2 years, they've definitely been taking it on board.
Dead right. So thanks for the question, Simply Phil. Peter Grundler with the next one. Small studios and one-man shows often make the really innovative games with better stories. What do you think? Will more players soon realise that, as well as that AAA studios are susceptible to trends copying each other's games, and turn away from those studios, forcing them to change their attitude? Or are gamers still going for graphics and online multiplayer more than for actual game experience? So the theory posited there is that perhaps gamers will eventually start moving over to the smaller studios, the one-man kind of indies and stuff, and look at how they're pushing things forward and innovating, rather than sticking with AAA, which is, there's copies. Those studios just kind of copy each other, copy what works, and following trends like open world and things like that. This just seems to be a template, whereas indies are a lot more creative, and they've got the freedom to be more creative because they don't have to pay wages for 700 people and stuff. What do you guys think?
Yeah, they're made quicker. Indies, you only hear about the good indies. There's so many shit indies. There's so many shit indies. That's the thing about it. Like
there is a vast quantity of indies.
Yeah, I follow like indie games quite a lot, and I always try and figure out what's gonna pop off and stuff like that. Like Alba year before, Celeste this year, they're like huge. You only hear the success stories. You were saying about one-man teams making good games. Yeah, sure. Inside was 2 men. Stardew Valley 1 game, but you hear about that because they are successful. If it was a one-man band and he made a shit game that wasn't Undertale or something, you wouldn't hear about about it. So the fact that they're doing that just adds to their story, and it makes you think that indie games are really innovative and pushing things forward, but really they're just exactly the same as AAA games in the sense that, for example, if there's 500 indie games and 500 AAA games, 10 of them would be innovative, 10 of them would be innovative. But the fact is there's 500 indie games and there's 4 AAA games. They're slower output, so you might need to spend years and years and years waiting to see AAA games do something innovative because they're made such slower scale. Yeah. And another thing is because they are made with such a high budget, they don't have time to take risks today. Indie developers can go, oh, we're going to add this, but we don't need to appease our huge publishers because our budget isn't 650 million. Whereas like there might have had to have been a board that Santa Monica had to appease for God of War. Then again, with something like first-party systems like God of War, the reason that could do that is because it's Sony's first party. They don't need to make
Sony are just pumping money.
They could just take a loss on it because they're still paying the wages and it'll sell systems. So I think that whereas I love indie games and most of my favourite games last year, in fact, my favourite games last year, like Night in the Woods, What Remains of Edith Finch, Divinity Original Sin, were all indie titles, all indie development studios. I think that
although Divinity it is a studio, isn't it? It's a team of many people,
and it was, when I say indie, I meant independent of a publisher. Although in a way they were crowdfunded, so they still had to appease people, but rather than it being a board, it was.
But you'd still describe them as indie, and there's just so that the point I'm making there is that just. You know, an indie doesn't mean one person. Indie just means not AAA, essentially.
Exactly, and I just worrying about people thinking indie also means innovative because it's not. There's so much trash out there.
There really is.
So that's what I'm saying. It's like AAA, for the most part, a lot of them are shit and samey and stuff like that. But don't write them off as not being creative or able to flourish and show off creativity because they absolutely can. And graphics and stuff like that matter to so many more people than us. Like the amount of people that just buy the latest game because it's a bit of a spectacle, Assassin's Creed and all that. It's huge.
It is to be appreciated as well, I think. I think graphics is easy to dismiss and to kind of look down your nose at. But if you just look at how immersive something like God of War is, the fact that it looks amazing and looks very realistic is part of it. And the fact that it looks amazing in HDR and things like that is just all part of it, and it's all part of your experience. Indies aren't always going for immersion. In fact, they rarely are. They're going for something different, I would argue. They're going for specifically storytelling or specifically some kind of fun game mechanic or interesting game mechanic or something. That's their thing that they want to talk about. And so whereas a AAA game will be like a collection of things that are trying to give you this cinematic drawing you in off the back of your sofa kind of experience. They want to try and make you sit forward and get absorbed in this world. That isn't always the same thing that an indie is going for, and because the scope is different, they can focus on one thing. They can say, oh look, it's a 2D platformer, but the world flips upside down with the press of a button, how they experiment with that little idea and how they push it and have fun with it is what that game's about. It's not about drawing you into the world of this 2D platformer so much as it is
because they can't. Because a lot of the time, I don't think they can. I think the best idea.
So the scope is different.
I think it's because of the desperation. I honestly reckon if you got like 10 indie developers and gave them 1 million times their budget, their games would probably be less innovative because they don't need to be. They can just rely on the graphics and stuff like that. So I think a lot of the ideas and things becoming like unique and stuff is because it's the only way they can keep their head above the water because they don't have the budget for the actors and the graphics and stuff like that. It's out of desperation.
Creativity comes from need, doesn't it? It's like, okay, I've got this kind of assets, this is my budget and this is my art skill. This is my personal level of art skill. I can't hire a team of artists to concept this stuff for me. What am I going to do? Then so maybe it'll be a strategy game. Maybe it'll be an RTS game with like pixel art because that is the limit to that person's creative skill. But then it could still be really good. Like look at Into the Breach or something like that. It's just a really very limited game that's really fun and really clever. So yeah, I think it's an interesting conversation. I think personally there's room for both. I agree with Jake that some of my favourite games last year were indie or Hellblade, which was kind of halfway between indie and AAA, and Divinity Original Sin, and these kind of games that are kind of halfway between both, which exist between indie and AAA. I think there's room for everything, and AAA is a huge part of the market. And I know what you mean, I guess, because it's like someone who just goes to see blockbusters and movies with The Rock in them, but there are many other movies, but they just it doesn't matter because they're entertained by the big ones. And you like if you're a proper cinephile, then you'll know that there's loads of other great films that are worthy of these people's time, but they just don't They're not into it because the big blockbusters are scratching the itch for them. I think some people just don't care enough. They're not that bothered about it, and that will be why. Because I think if you want indies and if you're hungry for it, you'll find them. You'll look for them.
Yeah, exactly.
You'll realise that AAAs aren't doing it for you. You'll stop playing Assassin's Creed every year. I'll stop picking on Assassin's Creed. But a few years ago, you would have stopped playing Assassin's Creed, and you'd maybe see what's free on the PlayStation Plus lineup that month or something, and play that.
Exactly. I think that if you just give too much credit to indies, and they'll become a lot more popular than they deserve to be, and then the innovation will go away. It sounds so hipster, but bear with me for what I'm saying, right? Imagine you are a cinephile and you've watched all these films that are like really highly rated, but no one really goes to see them. And then all of a sudden, people get sick of the Avengers and Marvel films, and they spend all their money pumping it into art house cinema. They're all then going, "Oh my god, this is so moving and amazing." Then the indie scene is getting so big and blown up, and their heads are all going that they stop. They just then start becoming.
And what happened is the A-list kind of studios would see whatever that popular indie film did and do that, and just really unartistically rip it off. And that's just the way it works.
People keep saying that a game's good because it's an indie game. It's gonna like really mess up what's happening at the moment with all these weird like little BAFTA award-winning things. I think it's gonna kind of corrupt the way that it works. I think that's what I'm saying.
It's an ecosystem, isn't it? It needs all of it. It needs AAA. It needs AA. It needs.
I think what I would like to boil it down to a sentence. The one thing I feel right now is that I think people just at the moment are finding it a little bit too easy to credit indie games when some of them aren't that good, and are finding it a little bit too easy, and it rolls off the tongue a little bit too much to insult AAA games when a lot of the time it's not as deserved as you think it is. That's what I think.
No, I agree. I think there's a lot of excellent AAA games and a lot of terrible indie games. So that's a great question though, Peter. Thank you very much. Victor with the last question before we go to the fact of the week. Hey guys, great work with the channel as always. Thank you very much, Victor. I recently played and beat Mass Effect Andromeda, and it was actually a lot better than many have claimed. Definitely has a lot of flaws, as I look forward to towards fantastic and meaningful writing and narrative to keep me playing 100 plus hours in an RPG, and this game had one that was cliche and average at best, but the gameplay was just so damn fun that it got a rare pass for me. Which games have you guys liked or loved in which pretty much everyone else has hated, and do games get a pass if their narrative isn't to par with the gameplay, graphics, vice versa? So if someone's got a bad story or bad gameplay and the other thing is good, would you still give it a pass? And also any games that you like that are widely hated? So we do get this question quite regularly. I think it's on our FAQs, but the second half of that question, would you enjoy a game just off the basis of a story? Or
yeah, definitely.
Of course, yeah. Definitely.
Like what?
I platinumed Deadly Premonition, even though that game is fundamentally broken.
Off the strength of the story.
Yeah.
Deadly Premonition.
Yeah. Because I was so engrossed by that world and the characters in it that I want to see how everything played out, even though the game plays like
Deadly Premonition.
It plays like a budget PS2 game.
Yeah.
Nice.
Okay.
But yeah, I mean, the story was that strong, the characters were that well written.
So it got a pass.
I wanted to platinum the game.
Yeah, sure. All right.
Definitely.
I'll do both sides quick. Speaking of budget PS2 games, Summoner. Summoner's interesting because it had a really good gameplay. Shit story though. Played it. Another game with great gameplay and a shit story, and I could see it coming, and it was cliche as fuck. Horizon Zero Dawn. I really don't like the way that story wraps up. You can see it coming a mile off. You can see it coming from the very, very beginning when they scan Aloy and it's 98% DNA. Oh my god! Right. So such an eye roll moment. Gameplay is great though. On the flip side, games with a great story with not much game. That's what I like, isn't it? You know, like What Remains of Edith Finch. The gameplay, it's a fucking walking sim with all these different aspects. And Night in the Woods, a great story. Pulled me through. That's just basically a side-scrolling game. Tons of others. Everybody's gone to the Rapture. I mentioned that loads at the moment. But yeah, Dear Esther as well. Any of that sort of stuff, that pulls me through. But a lot of the time, RPGs, like fantasy RPGs, and JRPGs to an extent, they're always so similar that like a lot of people don't play because they're stuck. Like, I need to know what's happening. You want your party to level up, you're excited. I think a lot of RPGs suffer from that. They drown in opportunity. They've got all this lore to delve into, and they end up just overcomplicating it, and it always ends up being some civil war between two elves if it's an Elder Scrolls game, and they always overdo it, and you always become so washed out by the end of it that you just like, I just want to be the best at this now. So come on.
Yeah, and this in RPGs as well. It's that crutch of like, you know, like the fables foretold a champion rising from the ashes, but no such champion has emerged. yet or whatever, and then turns out you're the champion. That's all right, isn't it? That's decent. Good bit of story. So that's a lot in RPG games. As a strategy gamer, what you get a lot is like you get really weak, really poor quality sci-fi writing in sci-fi RTSs and stuff like Supreme Commander and stuff like that.
I mean, Command & Conquer literally embraces that, doesn't
it leans into the
cheese. Campy live action cutscenes and all stuff.
But I actually love Command & Conquer 3 because of the full movie cutscenes that they've got with like what's his face, fucking Ironside. What's his face?
Michael Ironside,
yeah. And Billy D. Williams, and you've got I think what's her name? Like, there's some like famous actress in it as well. That's been in like a lot of TV shows and stuff. She's in like House or something like that.
Right.
What? So, What? Not I know. House. I know. This was before House.
Yeah. Right.
She was.
That's how she got the gig.
Exactly.
I mean, it's like Red Alert 3, Tim Curry, Peter Stormare.
Yeah, we were talking about this earlier.
It's got a great cast.
So you get that a lot. However, the flip side of that is I wouldn't say narrative, but the theme of it is great. Right. This is a game called Homeworld Deserts of Karak, which is a fucking terrible name.
Maybe subscribe.
And I've talked about this before, but what it does really well is like the ambient like voiceover and stuff, and it feels really cool to play, and the gameplay is pretty standard, pretty bog standard RTS stuff. All right, but it's like a scientific expedition. So because of the story they've told you and the setup that they've given you is so good, you feel like you want to do it, and you've kind of got this land-based aircraft carrier type thing, and you've got like all these little, and it's a really simple tank-based strategy game, but your goal is like this really long expedition through the desert planet. You've got to break open these crashed spaceships along the way, and you've got a persistent like fleet. So whatever you've got surviving from the last mission comes with you to the next mission. Yeah. So all of that stuff, which is not really related to the gameplay, it's just about the lie that the game tells you to motivate you to keep playing, is really good and really well put together. And it's got this really like militaristic, constant chatter that is actually useful. And it's really good. Why are you laughing?
Sound, music, and voice. I was laughing at my own shit joke familiar. Every time you were saying something, I was thinking of ACG the whole time.
It's good.
It's got this military chatter in your background, and I'm just thinking of characters going on. So I'm just laughing at my own jokes while you're talking. Sorry,
it's not like I haven't made that joke about 7 times in the past on the podcast. But that's right. Fact of the week. This week, in honour of the recent release of Avengers Infinity War in cinemas, can we have the fact of the week jingle, please? For the 2017 video game LEGO Marvel Superheroes 2, the vast majority of the cast of previous LEGO Marvel games did not return for this episode due to a voice actor strike. The strike was organised by SAG-AFTRA and backed by a number of other worldwide unions. It related to residual payments and other such conditions. So that was fact of the week. Right, so we're not doing 30-second throwdown anymore.
That's the whole story on that, actually. You're just rehashing our old content as fact of the week now.
To be honest, that was the worst fact I could find, and I looked at. Best fact I could find, and I looked through like all the like Ultimate Alliance and stuff.
Oh, you really wanted the Marvel themed?
I wanted the Marvel themed one, and this was
me.
Yeah, I admire that.
Well, I needed the game-related Marvel that was really boring, and one relating to residual payments for voice actors.
The fact that you said that's really boring, and the fact that I know we've made the video specifically on that before is funny.
Yeah, well, that's there you go.
It was a slow news week. It was a slow news week.
It was a slow news week.
I thought it was all right video, but you know.
So we're not doing 30-second throwdown anymore. We're doing something new. Every week we ask, like, is anyone annoyed about 30-second throwdown? Anything you can throw up about 30 seconds long that you want to rant about, and it doesn't always work, and then I end up having to do things like the 30-second Zen Garden to make way. That is the behind-the-scenes truth of the 30-second Zen Garden and associated throwdown. So that's not happening anymore. So we've come up with this new idea, I think, maybe, depending on how you guys respond to it.
What's it called?
Well, hang on. It's right. So this is like a confessions thing, okay? Yeah. So what we want is a 30-second long piece of writing, a comment that we can pick and read. Yep. That will take us about 30 seconds to read. That is kind of an anonymous confession of something embarrassing or terrible that you've done in a game. And that's maybe betraying your teammates or something, just kind of doing something wrong, like not realising there's a sprint in Skyrim, for example. Just anything like that. And it's anonymous, right? So you will be completely unknown to the viewers. With that in mind, I need to run by some names because we haven't got 30 seconds road on. So here are some names for you to, I guess, vote on, or just tell me if they're shite. The winner. Can we run a poll or something? What's the easiest way to run a poll?
We can do a poll on Patreon. I'll do it. Yeah.
We'll do a Patreon poll then, but these are the options that we're looking at. Seriously, I have not ran these by anyone else. Player Unknown's confession booth, Player Unknown's conduct hearing, Player Unknown's trial by podcast, or Dead Cred Redemption.
I mean,
so one of them could be the name of the new feature on the podcast. Unless you
what's Player because they're
Player Unknowns, no one knows who they are.
We're gonna get
and I was trying to get
South Korea lawsuit. We're
going to be all over it. Yeah. So we got Dead Cred Redemption, which is my personal favourite, or my second favourite is Player Unknown's conduct hearing. So we're because you are the unknown player as the confession person. So those are the current suggestions for this new feature.
Did you not think like Ace Attorney or anything? You know, that's like an actual lawyer
It's not. It doesn't hit the zeitgeist enough, Liam. That's the problem. Right. I was thinking of lots of games. I was running through a lot of titles, and Player Unknown and Redemption are the best words.
Yeah.
So there you go.
I'm going to cast my vote for Dead Cred Redemption right now.
Thank you, Liam.
There you go. That's my opinion.
So there we go. There's one vote for Dead Cred Redemption because your cred is dead and you need redemption.
It works.
It does work. Yeah. So those are the options. So next week there will be a new feature on the podcast called one of those four things, and I guess you're going to have to help us choose. And also, please give us your anonymous confessions. Just kind of leave them in the comments on the YouTube video, I guess.
Patreon, because then the YouTube...
but it's not anonymous then, is it?
I guess, but then on YouTube, to make it anonymous, you have to make a whole new account.
Should we open an inbox?
Inbox us, yes, on Patreon. Yeah.
Okay, so we'll put an inbox email, like we'll put an email address on the screen for you to email your anonymous stories to. Yeah. Please do this. Help us do this. You already help us with your questions to put the podcast together. This is another vital ingredient, and it's going to be way better than 30-second throwdown. Yeah. So we need your help to do this.
What's that email address going to be? That's going to be fascinating.
We've already got multiple email addresses that we don't use, so we probably just chuck one of them out.
Can we just rename it to whatever gets chosen?
Yeah, for sure. Dead Cred Redemption.
Yeah, and then also we're going to run that vote to actually name the feature as well. Then hashtag Dead Cred Redemption. Okay. So questions part 2. Michael Lindholm asks, best video game dwarf?
Me. Vermintide 2.
Yeah.
That's a good shout.
Yeah. He is a good dwarf.
I don't know. There's too many. There's too many good dwarfs in gaming.
They're kind of stereotyped, aren't they? Well, as all fantasy.
What's the one out of World of Warcraft?
The hunter guy.
I mean, any of the dwarfs out of Ironforge, they're all pretty badass, aren't they?
Okay, yeah, that'll work. I'm still going with me from Vermintide 2, but
okay.
No, I'm not actually. There's this dwarf that runs an underground kingdom in Divinity Original Sin 2, and he sounds like Danny Dyer. It's well funny. He has this like underground shack, and he runs things, and it's so funny. He's like a mobster, very very good. If you know, he's instantly memorable. He's really really funny. If you've played the game, you'll know exactly what I'm talking about. But that one dwarf.
Okay, that one dwarf.
He's so memorable, that one dwarf.
That one dwarf. I'm just Gimli in it from the Lord of the Rings, any Lord of the Rings game. It's just the dwarf. It's the original dwarf.
Dwarf. He's like the archetype dwarf,
exactly.
Isn't he? Yeah.
So there you go. Cheers, Michael. Lady B Games, nostalgia time, lads. What game converted you into lifelong gamers and why?
I think I've been playing games since I was like 2, I think.
How?
You can't remember that though. Like
I can't remember it, but there is photographic evidence of me as a toddler playing on a Game Boy.
I can't think.
Are you sure? Were you not looking at the Game Boy going, can I eat this?
I mean, I very well might have been, but
photographic evidence, mate. The photos don't lie.
So I mean, technically, you could say I've been a gamer since the.
But what game can you remember thinking, I'll have a bit more of this, please? Because I know what mine was. It was Legend of Zelda: Link's Awakening on the Game Boy. And it was this one moment where it's like the water temple, and it was like, you know, a good challenge. I had Castlevania on the Game Boy as well. I used to pick it up and put it down. Link's Awakening, no, I was like, I fucking love this. When you got past like mind-bending puzzles, and when I finally finished it, I was like, okay, so this is that game Zelda. Is there another Zelda? how can I find more Zeldas? What games are like Zelda? That's when I started like getting, I was questioning it. How do I find more games like this? Where do I look? Is there a culture? Is there magazines and all that? Do you know what I mean?
Is there a culture?
Is there a culture? But when I was little, I used to have like the Beano comic book, and I remember then going to the shop and looking for, is there like a Game Boy magazine or whatever? And I think it was like Nintendo Power back then. But that's the first time I wanted that rather than the Beano. So and just because I wanted to see how I can find more Zeldas. So that is the first game.
I love the idea of 5-year-old you saying, "Is there a culture?"
Is there a culture? Yeah.
Did you have a beard back then as well?
Yeah, turtlenecks and stuff. I did have a cracking fleece, you know. There's pictures.
I bet you did, yeah. I bet you had a
proper answer. It was probably something like Pokemon Yellow on the Game Boy. I remember being obsessed with it.
Yeah.
I had a Pokemon fleece, you know.
A Pokemon fleece.
Fleeces were all the rage, actually.
Pikachu t-shirt.
Yeah, fleeces were shit hot back then.
Yeah,
fucking
Pokemon is a big
nice.
Pokemon Red was another great addition.
Yeah, Pokemon Red was a very early game for me. I think mine are probably generally just a collection of SNES games. Like my dad got a SNES and got them all at the same time. All these games, like a handful. So there was like Star Fox, Super Star Wars, Super Mario World,
of course,
Metroid, and all these games that were just like, I loved all of them, and especially Super Star Wars, because I remember finding it particularly challenging compared to the rest of them. And I remember like feeling like, oh my god, I want to move forward, but this isn't letting me move forward. You know what I mean? So I had that, like, that's the first sense of like determination I got, and maybe that explains why Bloodborne's my favorite game. So it's I think it's a very early thing for a lot of people, but you know, I'm sure a lot of people come to it late as well. Like just
that's what I mean. Like I had the SNES and I used to really like enjoy Super Mario World and Donkey Kong, but like I would never think to look for more games like it or whatever. I just used to, my mum used to get it and I used to play it. You know? But this is, I'm just thinking like when I was wanting the culture, when I was thinking, oh my god, there's got to be other people that I can talk to about this. But there wasn't. I don't know anyone else that even had Link's Awakening on the GameCube. Do you know what I mean? So it's like, I think that's the conversion point. But a lot of people, they'll be playing games casually for their, you know, for some people I know that are like 40, you know, just getting into like RPGs, and it's like the first time playing like Simply Phil, a picture, he only just got into PC gaming, and then that's changed how he sees games. So there's lots of different ways people can change their perceptions and take it, and there's normally one point where they get serious about it, I guess. Yeah,
definitely. I mean, the first game I really, really looked forward to was Ocarina of Time, and that was that I remember spending months and months wanting to play it before actually getting to play it, and I think that was Ocarina of Time is probably the biggest single, you know, influence the game has had on me. But it's you definitely move on. I think I played a lot of PC games growing up, but I didn't have a PC until I was like in university. So although I'd played all these Total War games and played some strategy games, like RPG gaming on PC and stuff like that was new to me when I was in university. So so there's a whole other thing of PC gaming that I got into in university. So that's a great question. Thank you, Lady B Games. So Niels Brockhast asks, hey PGG, have you guys ever played games where the aesthetic totally mismatches the gameplay? For me, Nier Automata had a much deeper story than androids in fetish gear fighting wind-up robots and J-pop members. Yeah, okay, that's the end of the sentence. Same goes for the over-sexualized female models in The Witcher 3, which kind of mismatches the strong women they represent in the game. Yeah, so that's the imagery having an effect on the world. That happens all the time.
The Nier Automata one, though, that's kind of intentional, because that's like, on the surface it appears like she's stereotypical hypersexualized Japanese, you know, female main character. Then once you start playing the game, you get underneath the well, not
although
like that.
Didn't he say I like arses or something like that when when they asked why is she
thrown
in
away
the
all
gear?
like the deep symbolism and shit and shit, but thrown away all the symbolism of the game. Yoko Taro, when asked why is this character so sexualized, he just said I like pretty girls.
Right, okay.
So
there you go. So that's Nier Automata. I think Witcher. I agree with you there. It's just games do that, don't they? Like remarkably attractive people, considering the circumstances that they're in, and the limited availability of showering and bathing and stuff like that. and then it's that kind of thing, though, isn't it? It's like sometimes they just don't care, and they just need to be chiseled if they're men, and they need to be attractive if they're women.
Yeah.
Yes, I think that happens all the time in video games, things to that effect. I think the biggest culprit, though, I would say is Halo, which is something I've brought up before, because the cinematics and the trailers and the advertising is all super serious and super, oh, this is the end, but only one hero will rise, and oh, thank God for Master Chief for saving everyone's lives because of this apocalyptic alien invasion. But then you play the game and it's all like wacky and bright and colourful, and the enemies are kind of, you just can't take them seriously because they scream like little puppies, just like running away from you.
Yeah.
So it's that weird mismatch, and it's really noticeable in Halo for me. Any more thoughts, guys?
No, I haven't really got that much to add, but I'll give Night of the Woods its third mention of the podcast because that's a game about loads of different things. I won't say what they are, but yeah, considering it's like anthropomorphic animals, it's just, that's a bit of a mismatch. They're all quite cute, pastel-y coloured creatures, and then it's all a bit angsty, a bit, well, if you've played the game, you'll know.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's it.
Okay, so thank you very much for the question, Niels.
Cheers.
A few more to go. Sean Roberts asks, for the PC games in the team, when did you guys learn to use mouse and keyboard for FPSs? Did a friend or family member teach you? Did it blow your mind once you got the hang of it? Any weird combinations you learned other than WASD, the kind of keyboard setup, WASD, for movement, right? So that's the main one that people use. It always really annoys me when a strategy game is mapped to the arrow keys rather than WASD. That is so infuriating, and usually the games that do that don't let you remap the keys either. I just can everyone just stop doing that in all strategy games? Thanks. When did I first learn play? So, like I said earlier, right, I have been playing PC games and playing strategy games on like my dad's PC and stuff like that, and with limited access to it since I was pretty young. But I didn't get my own PC until I was in university. So Battlefield 3, I think, was the first time I sat down with a mouse and keyboard and properly did like multiplayer, FPS shooting stuff. Yeah. And I didn't really blow my mind. But I remember when I went back to a console thinking, this is a bit slow. I'm not reacting as quick as I think I should be able to and stuff. But, it didn't really bother me that much. It wasn't a mind blower, I've got to say. What about you guys?
I've been playing PC games as long as I can remember, really. I remember playing Half-Life 1 and Counter-Strike when they came out on PC, like pretty close to their release date. So which have been like, what, 1999? Something like that?
I can't remember when Half-Life...
It was something like... So I remember I got it in a big...
7 or something like that, maybe?
I got it in a big box, and it had Half-Life, Counter-Strike, Team Fortress Classic, and something else in it, like a fan-made mod or something. But yeah, as long as I can remember, I've been using keyboard and mouse. So yeah, it's just like it's always been there.
Right, okay. So part of your upbringing, do you use any weird key combinations?
No, I always pretty much run default. Even if the controls are shit.
Sometimes I'll adjust like sprint and crouch and stuff, because sometimes it's like I always like shift to be sprint and C to be crouch. And sometimes they map it to, so I'll kind of adjust slightly like that, but it depends on the game and not very dramatically. Jake?
I can remember very vividly the first time I ever played an FPS game on PC. I can remember it like it was yesterday. It was a very sunny day, and I was playing Far Cry on PC at my friend's house, and I remember he just told me it was W was up, so I figured out S was down, and I can remember like figuring out how to move side to side. Not that you really need to when you, but it wasn't the controls that really blew my mind, or the or using it wasn't the peripherals. It was like how good Far Cry was. I can remember you could pick up a stone and throw it, and it distracted the enemies, and it came quite naturally. It was the mouse that was a bit weird, because he had his quite like even now actually when I'm playing PC games here at work, like everyone else has a way higher DPI than me. I have very low sensitivity. I don't know what it is, but
so because you could move your whole arm, or move your wrist, or move a bit of a combination of the both, which people don't really think about what they do, but it has a huge effect on
my mouse sensitivity. I always have it quite low, right? And then I remember fucking moving the mouse, and like a guy was looking up and stuff. But I remember it just being like, I think that was the first time I think I played a first-person shooter, maybe not including GoldenEye, but with like ultra-realistic graphics at the time. Far Cry.
Definitely.
That was my first like figuring out that because it was my mate's stepdad. He was like really into PC gaming, and he always used to say about how PC Master Race in the early 2000s, one of them fuckers, isn't it? Is it anything less cool than telling a bunch of 8-year-old boys how superior your gaming console is? Do you know what I mean?
Look,
that's
I've
what he was
managed to buy
actually
with
doing.
my full-time salary.
Exactly. But I remember being blown away by it, and then having to go back to playing Croc Legend of the Gobbos was a bit. Do you know what I mean? Compared to Far Cry, and so I remember the first time it didn't feel weird. I can't remember how long it took me to adjust. I remember just having to turn a DPI down.
A lot of them early PC games, I think people have maybe forgotten how influential they are in terms of the level of detail they have in worlds and stuff now. Far Cry definitely being one of them. Crysis, obviously. Half-Life 2 in particular, for just the way physics work and stuff like that. So all these games were really like technologically, not just the way they looked, the way the world reacted and did things, and the like detail in the worlds was like the big marketing thing. It was like adding, exactly like you said, pick up a stone and throw it to distract the guards. It's a very basic thing that you have in any kind of Far Cry game or something now, but it was like that was like a very level of interactivity that you just didn't have before. Right?
Using a mouse wheel to seamlessly scroll between weapons as well was another thing. It's just it was like a generation ahead at that point in time, wasn't it?
Definitely. I remember playing Medal of Honor Allied Assault. On the PC, having played Medal of Honor Frontline on PlayStation 2 and seeing the difference there, and that was just massive. And exactly like you said, it felt like this was They felt like this is what PlayStation 3 would be like. Obviously, I was wrong, but it was like that's what it seemed to be like at the time. So that's a great question. Thank you very much, Sean Roberts. House of Frogs. Hi guys, what are your thoughts on brands such as Razer and Alienware? The reason I ask this is because a lot of my friends think they're overpriced and bad for the games industry as a whole. Brands generally just don't bother me. I just follow reviews for tech in particular, and word of mouth, I suppose. If someone's got a good reputation online.
I do think Alienware and Razer are tacky, I guess.
Definitely,
because they go for that like be the ultimate gamer like type of shite.
I don't know who they're marketing to, because anyone who's got that amount of money themselves is not going to buy that. They will just buy their own. They'll just build their own or buy their own custom built one or something like that, because the amount of money you spend on Alienware is far too much, isn't it?
Oh yeah, definitely. I mean, it's just like it's all the promotional stuff I hate, where it's like be the best, you are become the legend, all that kind of
run the plugins.
Whatever it is, it's terrible. It's tacky, and it's always got that like pose of the bald guy with the beard standing with like his arms crossed like that. It's like be the ultimate.
Do you know what I don't know what he's on about, which means it must be very specific.
Like if you go on any PC hardware website, like Overclockers or whatever, they've always got like the gaming section, and it's full of RGB lighting. And some guy in an esports polo shirt. Do you know
he's like
trying to look menacing.
It's very Insomnia Games Festival sort of shit. Yeah, I know what you're saying. I just find it incredibly tacky. Just like show a bit of restraint. Remember at EGX? Remember at EGX when we went to the esports area and everything was like cages. And
it was like
it's exactly what I don't like. They had like
it was like black painted metal cages everywhere.
It was like that one rave from the beginning of Blade.
Exactly.
Do you remember when we walked past? They were having like an Overwatch tournament. But it was in like a steel fighting cage.
That's it. And
it was like, what's this is shite.
Calm down, lads. Calm down. What I love, what you're talking about, that guy with crossed arms, is that picture of like a kind of early 20s looking guy with like the screen and like light and stuff coming out of him, maybe a fighter jet and a rocket or something, and he's like, like this, right? It's like, what are you doing? Like who's that? No one that's young enough to get excited by that has the money to buy a game PC. That's all.
I see.
Do you know what I mean? It's
I hate when they advertise peripherals like a controller as well, and they show them like doing all that and stop it. Because no one plays like that.
So screw those companies, I think, is the bottom line there. House of Frogs, we're not fans. Elliot Gardner with the penultimate question. Hey lads, new patron here. Another one. Thank you very much. Literally about 2 minutes at the time of writing, so I hope this is where I ask the questions. Yes, it is. Same again next week on this podcast, the latest podcast. Keep asking your questions on the latest podcast. My question is, have you ever bought a game because it has been talked about that much, yet found it slightly lacking because you already know loads about it? Generally when you go back, if you revisit classics that you missed or something, for example, if you went and played Half-Life 2, which we mentioned earlier now, you probably would be a little bit underwhelmed by it.
Yeah.
It's because of the level of hype for the Half-Life 2 is the best game of all time, top on the lists and stuff, and Half-Life 3 is the demand for that. So if you went back and just thought, oh, this must be unbelievable, I'll go back and check it now. It's good. It's very good, very entertaining, well written and stuff, and you can see why it was so revolutionary at the time. However, you probably will be a little bit underwhelmed if you didn't play it at all back then. I don't know if I've got an answer other than like that kind of thing. I guess I know what you mean, but I can't really remember a time where it's happened to me recently or anything. Can you guys?
Yeah, Oblivion. I remember one of my friends specifically was playing through it on his PC, and he was like saying it's the greatest game ever made. Best. This was like probably.
It wasn't me, was it?
It wasn't you. No, this is when I was in high school, and he kept singing the praises of it. And so I got it on a Steam sale. This was probably like 4 or 5 years after it came out.
Yeah.
And so I bought it and I played it, and it's just like I just didn't see the appeal.
All right.
But all my friends were like going mad about it, and I just didn't get it. Expectation
is the killer of all enjoyment, isn't it? So I would probably say maybe I've technically I suppose Peter Molyneux with Fable 3 because thanks to Peter I knew loads about the game before it came out. Finally got to play it and was bitterly disappointed. I chose Fable 3 specifically because I actually really enjoyed Fable 2 and Fable 1, Fable 1 being one of my favourite games. But Fable 3
was a disappointment.
It was lightweight, and Peter Molyneux had told me a lot about it, so that's my answer.
Peter
Jake?
Molyneux said I could be a king.
Yeah, and I was a king, and it was a bit shit.
Yeah.
Whoa, Peter. Well, I guess if we're going off like press hype, I guess No Man's Sky has to get a mention, doesn't it? Everybody had a little thing in their head what they thought that was bad.
Well, no, because specifically because you already knew loads about it.
Okay, yeah. There's no one knew anything.
No
about
man's
that.
it was a lot of vague promises.
Do you know what? I genuinely don't think I've got an answer for this.
No, neither do I. My Peter Molyneux's just not. I haven't really got an answer. I don't think.
I don't think anything's been. I am the overhyper. No one I know.
Yeah, you're the culprit here. Yeah. You're the distributor of overhype.
I've got another answer then.
Okay.
Grand Theft Auto 4. I played.
Oh God, yeah.
No,
screw that game.
Yes.
My friends were like my friends clearly aren't to be trusted because they said that was the greatest game ever made.
Yeah. the same friends.
Yeah, the same friends. And I played it and I thought it was shite.
Yeah,
I
so
thought the controls were terrible. Nico was boring as fuck.
Never got on with it.
That's it. That's definitely it. All my mates were playing it on a 360. I saw him in the party chat. I was playing probably fucking Skate 2 or something.
Viva Pinata or something.
Something good. All my mates GTA 4. Yeah, fucking got it. No.
So there you go. That's the official pretty good gaming verdict. Grand Theft Auto 4 is as boring as shit. If you disagree, please tell us why. Tell us what you think is good about Grand Theft Auto 4 down in the comments.
So we can block you.
So we can remove you from the channel. Nah, it's a solid wall of agreement against Grand Theft Auto 4 there. So yeah, it's
fuck Nico,
man. But yeah, I guess tell us what you think. Dan Lockyer with the last question of the podcast. Are there any IPs that haven't yet been adapted for video games that you would like to see made? So any IPs that exist out there that haven't been made into video games at all. So I guess we can't say something like Game of Thrones because in my opinion, no real video games have been made of Game of Thrones.
But there are
technically 3 of them.
Yeah, I get that.
So I don't know. Blade Runner, I suppose, is it video games? The thing is with those kind of answers,
there's a point and click adventure.
That's what I was going to say. That's exactly what I was going to say. There's probably a point and click adventure from the 90s or some kind of platformer from the 80s. Yeah. So I'm all right since the year 2000.
Well, and to your knowledge. Do you know what I mean? Because you're not,
to my knowledge, yeah. So a really good Blade Runner game, I would well be into. There's been a lot of like Alien games, and I'm a big fan of Alien. So The Thing has a game which is good.
It's a good game, yeah.
So these are kind of my favourite movies. I don't know what else, guys. Can you think of any IP books or something that have not been converted into the world of video games?
Nuh-uh, because
Westworld maybe TV.
Westworld is a game. It's just going to be a Red Dead mod, isn't it? If it comes to PC,
well,
just get it done, man.
Red Dead with like a
very, very cool
Assassin's Creed kind of Animus Slayer because you've got it's all a lie.
Yeah, that would be very cool.
I don't know. I think a lot of things get games these days, don't they?
I'd like to see more like proper, actually not shit Lovecraft adaptations. But that doesn't count, because it's already.
A lot of indies do have a stab of it, have a stab at it, don't they? And retell stories, specific Lovecraft stories and stuff.
A good Predator game.
Yeah,
that'd be alright. There was Concrete Jungle, but it was pretty shite.
Yeah, that was God awful. I played that. It was shocking. I thought
it was not good.
That was the end of the podcast. God. Anyway, see you next time.
On that note, let's wrap it up there. Thank you everyone for your questions. If we did miss your question, then just ask away in response to this podcast on Patreon, and we'll try and get it answered next week for you. Thank you everyone who seems to be joining us recently, adding their support on Patreon. And
the 2 weeks I've been gone, the podcast was
it's been doing really well without you. No, it's been weird. It's been just a bit of a been a bit of a pickup recently, and that's really cool to see. And thank you everyone for letting us know as well that you're a first time patron and all that in the when you're leaving your questions. That's cool. Remember the new segment that we've got coming up, which we'll have a poll on Patreon. Please do respond to that in terms of what name you want, and respond to the email address with your stories, your anonymous confessions. Try and keep it tight so it doesn't take longer than about 30 seconds to read out. And that'll be on your screens right now. I'm just not saying what it is out loud because I don't know what it is yet. But we'll have an email address on the screen.
I think we all know.
And if you're listening to the podcast, then I'm sorry, you will have to just watch the video to get the email address. But we'd love to get your stories in so we can get this segment going. And we'll have the Patreon poll so you can vote on the name as well. Thank you everyone for watching. Remember to like and subscribe if you enjoyed the video. My name's Mike. This is Liam. That's Jake.
All right.
We'll see you next time.